Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Tina Ibironke, and this is your first time of listening to this version. This is Test to Testimony, where we talk about real life events and how God can turn one's test to a testimony. These stories are events that happen in people's lives, and they're for us to learn, for us to see God in the light of what He can do, what He has done for others, and what He's able to do for us as well. Again, tonight, all we do on this platform is to encourage each other to see what God has done in other people's lives, people like you and I, and go with the hope that whatever you and I are looking for or waiting for, God is able to do it as well. All right, with that said, we will continue tonight, and I do have an exciting story tonight. And maybe you haven't really watched any of these episodes or any of these sessions. I want to encourage you to go to YouTube and do a search test to testimony and just watch any of the sessions. And I believe and I hope that you'll be blessed. Tonight again, as we continue this short session, I hope and I pray that you and I will be blessed. And I want to talk tonight about a very interesting story. This is, of course, every story is unique to the person, to the individual, because for each and every one of us, I do know that God has different plan. He is God. And for every situation, for every experience and challenges or whatever it is that we've been through, we're going through, or we're about to go through, we always know as believers that God is in the midst of it. I have no doubt. So God is in the midst of every situation, every trouble, problem, storm, whatever it may be. God is in the midst of it. And He may just be preparing you for the glorious days ahead. So again, this is just to encourage you. I will be talking about a little boy called Saroo. I hope I pronounced that right. It's actually from a movie. And I want us to tonight to see God from a perspective of being our helper. I know if you've probably come across Psalm 121, verse 2, where it says, our help, your help, my help comes from the Lord. If you haven't thought about it, tonight, this particular story will get you thinking that your help and my help comes from the Lord, not from human beings, not from the people that you probably know, that you trust. Our help comes from the Lord. So wherever you need help tonight, I want you to pay attention to this story, because your help, the man, the woman, the government, I don't know who you're looking up to for help. The help does not come from them. Your help will and always has always been help. Best help you can get can only come from God. So interestingly enough, I just watched this documentary. I think there is a movie called Lion. The little boy, well, actually, he's a grown-up man now. He's originally from India, but he was adopted by parents in Australia. Maybe you've heard about the story before, but I'll go through the story very quickly. I'm not going to go into details. I just want to point out a few things again to show us that God is our helper. Regardless of how bad, terrible, I don't know how you want to describe your situation. The situation is God, our God, as long as we belong to Him, He is our helper. So this little boy, five was actually back then in the 80s. He was 5 years old. The father was no longer with them. I believe the father was probably not, he wasn't being a father at the time. As the story captured, the father was not on with them, it was just a mom taking care of his kids. He was 5, he had an older brother at the time that was 7. So mom will go to work at night, and I believe the 7-year-old took the 4-year-old or the 5-year-old boy with him to go maybe to get work or to just beg or ask for change around. Got on the train, went down. I believe that's probably not the first time they've done it before. They went down to a different town with a brother. It was a night. And by the time they got to where they're going, I believe the little one, the 5-year-old, was very sleepy. So at that time, they got out of the train. I believe the boy left him, the older brother left him on a chair or a seat or whatever at the train station. So the boy fell asleep, and somehow hours later, when he woke up, realized that the brother was not there, thinking that the brother was just around. The brother had told him that he would be right back. And Saroo, the 5-year-old, looked around, couldn't find the brother, but then saw a train. They came on a train. He must have assumed the brother was already on the train waiting for him because there was a train right there waiting, and he was ready to go back home. So got back on the train, and the train was some point in time, train started to move. But his brother, the older brother, the 7-year-old, was nowhere to be found. So train traveled and traveled and traveled and traveled. Not sure exactly how long it took the train to get to where the train was going. The train stopped. It was at that very point in time, he was in Calcutta. I think that's where the place where the train went to from their village. Went to Calcutta, I believe it is. It was 930 miles away. And what was interesting, the boy got there, got out, the brother was nowhere to be found. Of course, being 930 miles away from his village, the language was not the same. No one could understand what he was saying. He couldn't speak the local dialects. He couldn't communicate. Looked for his brother, yelled for his brother, did everything he could do. His brother was nowhere to be found. Walking the streets, not sure exactly how long it took him to walk down the street, hungry for days, months, weeks, not particularly sure. After a while, they had him, at least it was probably the police, or someone took him to a home for, I guess, homeless children or lost children or adoption center there in Calcutta, I believe it was. And he was there. And of course, God knows how many more children that were there with him, hundreds and hundreds of kids, I believe. And for months, nothing happened. They couldn't find his brother. They couldn't locate any member of his family. Obviously, 930 miles away. They probably had to do more search before they can actually figure out the village where his mom was. So they were never able to locate his mom or any member of his family. So from there, months passed, I believe, they moved him to another agency, adoption center. And of course, that adoption center was better than where he was. And after a while, some odd reason, or I guess by God's grace, he was it was adopted by Australian parents. And that looks and sounds like just a story, everybody else who knows, not sure exactly how many other children are out there that have been able to find their way into a new family and all that. But the reason why this actually stuck with me, this particular story, when I watched it, I looked at a 5-year-old boy from a village in India, all the way. I'm pretty sure someone are probably thinking, 5-year-old, how can why would that happen? But like I said, God has a plan for each and every one of us, and your story is not going to be similar to mine. And of course, Saroo's story is probably not similar to any other boy that's been adopted there. The Australian parents just took him to Australia, and they took care of him, adopted him. I think it was probably the first child that they adopted and all of that. And after a while, they adopted another Indian child. But then for over years, for about, I guess, 20 something years, at least 2 decades or whatever, the boy, maybe close to that decade, he wasn't, not sure exactly how often he thought about going home, but eventually he really wanted to locate. He kept looking. At least he started to look at some point because he wanted to find his real parents. And it's interesting how a 5-year-old can remember that he had parents, and he actually he left home, and he still had that memory, and that memory stuck with him. because as I was looking at a documentary, he actually kept looking from where he was adopted. Where could his home be? He didn't have it didn't know how far he was from home. He didn't know how far the train had taken him. The train had taken him 930 miles. He didn't know he was a 5-year-old kid, and he had no idea he was far away from home. But to God be the glory, because he's kept and he never gave up, kept looking. Google Earth, by the way. He didn't go home searching. He didn't go back to Calcutta or the adoption agency to search. He just kept looking on Google Earth, trying to figure out where could his village be. And from the story, while he was looking, and expanding his search each time, trying to figure out the village, how close it could have been. Said the memories of how he used to run in the field that surrounded his home came to him. God gave him that vision that, okay, you want to find where you actually came from. And the vision came to him. And that was how he went back 25 years after he had left that home to look for his mom. By the time he got there, of course, the house where the mom used to live was like a shed for something else. It's been converted. But luckily, he had a picture of how, when he was 5 years old with him, and there was someone there that he was able to show it to, and they took him to his mom, and the mom had not given up on him. The older brother was dead at the time, but the mom did not give up. At some point in time, according to the story, the mom still, in her mind, I'm sorry, still was hoping and believing that this child would come back home, and it happened. As far as Saroo himself, I just wondered how many kids ended up on the street and they were nowhere to be found after, and that was it for them. Didn't get parents to adopt them, was not able to go that far because then he went to school, he had a comfortable home. I mean, everything he would never have been able to get if he was in his village. Of course, there's nothing God cannot do. But it was different from where it came from. There was food. They didn't have to go on the street and beg for money. They didn't have to like sleep in the mud or whatever it is. I mean, where God took him to was 1,000 times better. But of course, he wanted to go back to his family. But then by the time he went back 25 years, his life was 1,000 times better. He had been to school, lived in a good environment, had good parents, he was well nurtured. What am I trying to say? Situation may start out in a bad, probably terrible way, but God has a plan. We have an amazing God. And that was why the particular Bible verse that I just read, I said, that our help, your help, my help, it comes from the Lord. I love that song. It says, all of my help cometh from the Lord. My help, my help, my help, all of my help cometh from the Lord. You excuse me because I'm not a professional singer, but that was what came to mind. That whatever the situation may look like, our situation, my situation, that God is always there to help. He's our helper. He is the only one that can send help from Australia to India. He is the only one that can save one child out of God knows how many hundreds of children that are there looking for parents to adopt them. He's the one that can handpick a 5-year-old to be adopted by parents that will nurture him, take good care of him, put him on a roof, give him the best care. We have an awesome God. Because anyone that may have probably seen the boy on the street 25 years ago will look at him and say, this boy may not end well. But God had a plan for Saroo. That plan came to madam. It came, it didn't end, life did not end the way it started. No. And his life is still getting better because he came back, saw his parents. And it just gives me joy that whenever we have situation, challenges, situation, tough times, we can always rely on God as our helper to help us and deliver us from whatever situation we find ourselves. Again, it's just one story, like I said, that every time that I think about situations like this, it actually allows me to believe more in what the Bible, to have faith. It strengthens my faith, because it strengthens my faith as a person that this God is a just God, is a faithful God, is a righteous God, is our helper. We have different names for God, but when you need Him as a helper, He will show up for you. He's the only one that can prepare. And at the end of the day, according to when I was actually reading and then the summary and about the movie is called Zion. The boy is actually called Saroo, but I think the real name was Sheru. At the end of the day, who knows? 5-year-old called his name, and his name was a bit different than what the parents actually and the parents actually named him, the name from the name the parents actually gave to him. But I just want to say that this God is awesome. The way He orchestrates things, the way He works things out, it's beyond human imagination. And that's why, as I encourage myself, as I read through the stories, and I try to just see things differently, that situations may happen. Conditions may not be what you really want. It may not be conducive for you. Environmentally, even your environment may not be what you really want. But God is our helper. That when we cry out for help, even before we cry out, He's always there. He will stretch out His arm to help us, to deliver us. He will take care of us, take care of our situation. So I want to encourage you, as I encourage myself today, that we should never give up, never give up on God. He will show up at the time, at the right time. He's never late. He's never too late. He's never too early. He will always show up at the right time. Some people may have thought 5-year-old, he's already 930 miles away. It's done. There's no way that boy, I mean, if you look at the situation with human eyes, 25 years ago when it happened, you would have said, this boy, that's done. His life is done. He's an adoption agency. And that's it for him. He probably will never meet his family. He will probably never will never be able to go home. Who knows, maybe his life will never be a good one. And a lot of thoughts as human beings, we would have probably had that thought process. But thanks be to God, our Father in heaven, the one who is able to surprise everybody with things that we can never have imagined. So tonight I want to say, or maybe you're listening to this in the morning. I don't know, maybe it's morning where you are, maybe it's afternoon or evening. I just want to say we have a great God. Tonight we want to establish that we have a God who is our helper. Helper in times of need, helper in times of in days we have challenges. Help us in the time when we need Him most. He is our helper in every situation and in every circumstance that you may find yourself, or maybe that you're in, or that you actually, Pastor, I know you may have experienced Him as well. And tonight, I just want to say that again, we have a God, and He will help you. He will continue to help me in Jesus' mighty name. Thanks again for listening. And I do want to appreciate you for just checking in and just listening to this recording. God bless you again. This is Dr. Tina, and this is Test to Testimony. I hope that you'll go back, if you have not already done so, look at the other tips, or at least refer to someone or send a video to someone. It blesses you. God bless you. If it blesses you, send it to someone. Bless someone with the tape as well, with the recording as well. Thank you so much. God bless and have a blessed evening. See you next time.